Hi there. I did a post about women who are aggressive to each other, especially women on the job. And this commenter asks, how do you deal with them without getting into trouble? Effing them up, as she says. Hi, my name is Dr. Natalie Jones. I'm a licensed therapist. I've been counseling women and men who have experienced abuse as well as those who are perpetrators of abuse. And I'm gonna say some things that might be offensive to some, but I just base it off of my experience and my education and whatnot. One of the things that I think, when especially if you're on the job, when you're on the job, you really have to think about how much you want to invest to your work culture. One of the best ways to deal with a toxic job is to stop caring and stop being emotionally invested in the company, the culture there, and just spend your energy, elsewhere. So what that looks like is just going to work, doing your job, and leaving and going home. And then making sure that you have good work-life balance outside of the workplace. That sounds great in theory, and that definitely works for some, but not all, because a lot of times, especially where I worked in corrections for a long time. Corrections can become very antagonistic, and it can get to a point where you just can't ignore it anymore. Um, a lot of men can probably get by with ignoring it, but a lot of women can't, because women just really just poke the bear. And so for that, I'll just use my own examples. I think one of the things that Black women and women of color need to get really good at doing, and they can sort of model from white women who are pros at doing this, is weaponization of tears. When and this isn't meant to be offensive, but one of the things I've noticed about white women, particularly when they get into conflict and they're expected to be held accountable in a lot of settings across the board, even in relationships, is they will cry, and it's like, and scene, and pop, they start crying, just for an example, it's like, when they get into trouble and they get caught up being in a love triangle, right? And they're a mistress of some sort, and especially with like a celebrity, and it gets ousted that here's this mistress, and next thing you know, the mistress is on TV crying, talking about how like this has really messed with her life and her emotions, and now she's got all this emotional damage and this and that, all from this affair that she willingly participated in and got caught up in, right? But she's on TV, and there's billions of people that will come to their aid and to their defense. And so I think the weaponization of tears, like for me, I noticed, and I'm thinking about one particular coworker who used to come to work. And she used to come to work. Like she would call off work a lot, but then she would come to work, and and just be a problem for everybody. And then when she's expected to work, she would just sort of cry to the supervisor. And when she did that, she got to stay in her office all day long and get paid for not working. So here I come, Dr. Jones, senior on my team, bam, 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 knocking on the door. What are you doing right now? Like, oh, this, I can't take it. And why are you in your office crying? You actually need to be on the floor. I don't care what our supervisor's telling you. You actually need to be on the floor doing your job, or go home. Like, pick one or the other. You can't do both, right? Like, when you're here, you're pretty much useless. And this is me being confrontational. Because for me, at corrections, being confrontational was nothing, because we're 500 miles past I don't give a damn, and that's just where I was at with it. Like, I'm fed up with, the bullshit. Like, we're 500 miles past I don't give a damn. So either, put up or get out. Like, just do what you need to do and do your job. And, they don't like that very much. So she's giving me the spiel like, hey, listen, I don't care about anything going on in your life or what you got going on. I just need to know, are you going to do your job, or are you just going to like kick around and kick cans all day? And she's having a coherent conversation, but after we're done, what does she go do? She goes to cry about it to my supervisor, and here my supervisor comes wanting to talk. I don't want to talk. I just want somebody to do their job. But, nonetheless, that opened up the door, because once somebody confronts a problem, a job, on the job problem, such as myself, I'm confronting the problem, then everybody else feels comfortable to do it, right? So now I've opened up the door, and now you have other colleagues that are now confronting that person. And then, she went on her way and quit shortly thereafter. And so what I could have done is I could have cried and said I felt unsafe, and said that, I don't feel supported on my job, and I'm expected to pick up someone else's slack, and I'm just emotionally overwhelmed and tired. And, I could have done that, right? So you could have gone weapon for weapon, and we could have all been crying up in there and made it work. But, instead, I chose to confront the problem and stop caring. At that point, and for me, I was already doing my own thing. I had my business prior to even going in corrections, so I was already working. So it like when you're just fed up like that, I didn't care about what the consequences. But again, to each his own, so results may vary with that. But again, I do good work, and I'm tired of being manipulated into doing other people's work or being gaslit on the job. So that's one thing. Number two, two or three, whichever one you want to call it. I think, one of the things that people don't utilize enough is stress leave, or leaves of absences and things like that. I feel like more people should use them. You pay benefits into them at most jobs where you work full time. So I would recommend using them. Going to see your doctor and telling them that you're stressed out if you can afford to do that. And then, just taking time here and there. If I was smart enough, I probably would have been taking that a lot more often as well. Get therapy. It's always a good idea to get therapy to, deal with emotional stress on the job, and strategize with a therapist as well. You can have a one-on-one conversation, and that can go either way. There's women that I've tried to have, I recall trying to have a one-on-one conversation, and it didn't go well because I'm not emotionally invested in their problems, and people want to bring you problems to work. I don't care, just do your job. If you've got problems, seek outside help. So it just depends. But I think if you were to have a conversation with women who do this, you need to be firm and you need to stand on business. You need to let them know what time it is. I remember a coworker that got it with me, and, F you, Dr. Jones, that's kind of what she had to say. And I got up. I said, I know I didn't just hear what I'm saying, because she, one of her friends was being messy and said, I told him that she doesn't come to work, which is true. I said, hey, listen, I got no problem telling you to your face, you don't come to work. But I'm not the one being messy. Your friend is. You should have heard the things they told you. But if you want to have a conversation about it, you got to be respectful. I'm not going to engage in this back and forth with you. Just kind of that. And then I went and told my supervisor about the exchange. I have 3 other witnesses. It was not a problem for me because I didn't do anything wrong, but I always, do that to protect myself in case things go awry. It depends on, the situation that I got with the supervisor, but I let them know, hey, if this person comes to me again, I'm not going to be so pleasant, and I want to do my due diligence and tell you, and I'll put it in writing and let you know that, hey, if they come and do this type of stuff to me and they're disrespectful, all bets are off. Results may vary, but with me, I do know that worked. Lastly, the thing I will say is maybe having information that you could leverage, for the appropriate time. It's not something I recommend, and it's not something that's very pleasant. But if people are getting out of line and being disrespectful and emotionally harmful to you, then having information to have people fall back in line is what I have found to be most helpful. And I know that this is a tactic that a lot of lawyers use and things like that when they want to, throw people off their game, right? Like experts and things like that, which I do. And one of the things that they will do at a deposition or trial is, Dr. Jones, you did X, Y, and Z, and they'll just throw it out there, some fact, and it's meant to throw me off my feet, and it's meant to paint my character as being incompetent or not as good of a stand-up character. But having information helps.